Now we can kind of talk about the other aspect of Egypt that I think a lot of people, besides pyramids and pharaohs, is Egyptian religion because it is so fascinating, it's so complex and interesting. And I'm just going to kind of give some main points, some main ideas here, highlight a few different main points, concepts, also some key figures here. I mean, it'll just be sort of it won't be anything comprehensive, but hopefully you'll walk away with this with a little bit better understanding of Egyptian religion. But um, as we know, Egyptian religion is polytheistic, meaning there's a whole bunch of gods, around 2,000 deities, god and goddesses. They always have a human body with a animal head, and usually typically those relate to some sort of feature of the animal. So Horus here is a falcon, Anubis is a jackal. The big thing about Egyptian religion, the underlying key of everything, is this idea of mat or harmony, right? That humans' actions need to be in accordance with the gods. When the gods are pleased, society works well. You can please the gods in many ways by giving offerings, but also, being vigilant to the pharaoh, being good in your daily life. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but all of those things. And if you achieve this mat and harmony in society, you'll go to the afterlife, which we'll get to in a little bit as well, which is very much part of Egyptian religion. And again, we see that when we looked at chapter 3 of the Epic of Gilgamesh. They have an idea of the afterlife too, but it's this world of dust, whereas in Egypt, the afterlife is a whole nother realm. It's like the second life that everyone lives, and you need to prepare yourself for that, and that's where we get sort of mummification. So we'll look at all of that stuff. So just some ideas of Egyptian religion. This is the Ankh. You've seen this. Here you can see it here. It's this key of life, sacred Egyptian symbol. You see it all over in the Egyptian world. Here's Horus. We talked about the falcon, Anubis, the jackal. We'll get to about them a little bit later. Wadjet is the cobra. So if you ever see a cobra, that's the protector of the pharaoh. You can see why that would be the case. Thoth is the ibis. He's the god of science and writing. So you can see he's holding a stylus here. So all these gods and goddesses have different stuff associated with them. They all have their different temples. Each deity has its own temple. So you would go and give offerings at these, and they'd all have different things associated with them. Heliopolis, this is the temple of Ra. Amarna, we'll talk about, is the god of the Aten, the rays of the sun. Thebes is where a lot of these are located. Karnak, Luxor, the Valley of the Kings, Valley of the Queens, all these different huge temple complexes. Here's these monoliths that were built for these various gods, and pharaohs very much intertwined together. Here's a little map that sort of lays these things out. Here's Cairo and the Sphinx and the pyramids up here, rock tombs. This is Luxor, Karnak, Temple of Karnak and Luxor, Temple of Amun. This is also where the Valley of the Kings and Queens are. Here's the Aswan. So a lot of these temples, you see, most of these temples are in Egypt proper. North of the cataract. Some of them are out of it. A temple of Isis we see here. We'll talk about Isis a little bit. But here's this temple of Ramses II, because this is the edge of the new kingdom where Egypt was expanding. So just kind of give you again a geographical idea of where all these were. Within these gods and goddesses, there's this huge priestly class here. They perform ceremonies. This is a offering scene from the stela. Stelas is a stone, usually an upright stone depiction. Usually a lot of them are inscribed. So this is an example of the priests giving offerings to the pharaohs. Here, a lot of ceremonies. I mean, again, these downtimes of the Egyptian world, the Egyptian calendars, were very much demarcated by prayings, offerings, festivals to the gods. One of the biggest ones was a 30-year festival, the Sed festival. If a pharaoh ruled for 30 years, they had these huge, again, Egyptian-wide festivals that everyone would come to these temple complexes. Here's a recreation of this high priest of the Temple of Karnak who ruled. His name is Ifunamun, 960. So he was mummified. This is what he looked like. He had his own tomb. I mean, if you worked your way up the ranks, you also could have these tombs be mummified as well. So part of these worlds. The temple. We talked about the social hierarchy of Egypt. The priests were very much up there. At some points, we'll see when we talk about Akhenaten. Sometimes these priests got even a little bit too powerful, and then rivaled the pharaohs, or would try to kind of bring their own pharaoh, somebody they control, into power. And you see this is kind of some of the downfalls of some of these pharaonic dynasties of Egypt, is when the priests tried to install their own sort of puppet pharaoh there, and they could control power. A lot of intrigue within the priests and political status there. Here's famous, and then kind of some of these rulers. Here is Amun-Ra, sun god. You can see the sun's over there. Here's a little, you saw this is the scorpion, so Wadjet controls this. There's sort of Amun and Ra. They were originally two different kings. Sometimes you see them with these big elongated hats. But over time, they were kind of, the sun god became kind of unified together. Main temple is Heliopolis, became this creator god, temple Karnak, also associated with the Sphinx as well. So the Sphinx figure is part of Amun-Ra world. Isis and Osiris are these huge figures. I gave a video about them. Please watch that for a little bit more. Very interesting. Osiris was the god of fertility. He's dismembered by his brother Set, the god of chaos. Isis then goes around, sort of the mother goddess, and reassembles Osiris's body. Story symbolizes death and rebirth. All of these things. A little video about it talks about it a little more detail. But these are also very important figures of Egyptian history: Osiris and Isis. And then their son Horus. He defeats Set, avenges his father, and then becomes sort of the god of the pharaohs and kingship, associated with the sky, do the falcon imagery here. So Horus as well. Another major figure is Anubis, this jackal god here, god of death in the underworld. So within Egyptian society, you have, in order to cross over to the afterlife, that you had to get your heart weighed in a jar that had to be lighter than a feather. The person who weighed this was Anubis. Here it is Thoth. Here he's recorded the deeds of your life. Here's another god. I can't remember, a crocodile god here. So you were judged. Anubis judges if your heart was lighter, I guess, weighed against a feather. If it was equal, you went to the afterlife. If it was overbalanced, then you didn't. You were banished to the non-afterlife. There's a very famous text, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, that contains the spells and procedures for how all of this takes place. But this is very much part of this Egyptian religion, the afterlife world, the role of the gods and the humans. And then, this idea of mummification very much comes out of this, that there is this field of reeds, Aru, this afterlife here that you could go into, cross over. And that's what mummification comes from, is preparing the body to go into the afterlife. And here's sort of the phases of mummification. And if in archaeological finds, I mean, each one of these are found. The sort of lower ranking people could be mummified, maybe just got wrapped up in cloth, and then you could go different phases. And then the pharaohs obviously had these huge sarcophagus that were inscribed. Again, all these things, these are all stories of who this person is. That's why we know so much about these rulers. Again, the Book of the Dead talks about the process of how to do all of this. Your internal organs were taken out, removed in these canoptic jars, and then your body was dried with salt. And they, they're very technical. They knew how to do all of this stuff. And then but you needed all of this. You needed to prepare this and keep it for the next life. And your body would be preserved. A lot of times, the more important, particularly pharaoh burials, would be buried with food, maybe other with their servants, or also things they might need in the afterlife. But this was very much part of this Egyptian world, Egyptian religion, and we know a lot about this, obviously, from things like the Books of the Dead and other myths and legends of these religious figures of ancient Egypt.